It's a bright 24 degrees Celsius here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily, your daily dose of sunshine. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Well, today I'm alone on the program, but maybe not so alone, as I also have you, whom I'm hoping will respond in the course of the program. Quite a lot to, talk about on this program, as we actually do have the screening of the INEC chairman, which happened yesterday, to take a look at. And he said quite a number of things. The screening of Professor Joash Amupiton in the front of the Senate yesterday when he stood before the senators taking their questions. He made quite a number of promises. His agenda, top of the agenda, is that he intends to make polls or polling the electoral process so transparent that losers will congratulate winners. How he intends to do that is, there's certainly a lot of work to make sure that that happens, but that is high up his agenda. He also took quite a number of questions in the area of independence of INEC. Yes, there was that. And then there was also autonomy of INEC, which is closely related to independence. There were also questions around controversy that had brewed whether or not he had been part of any presidential candidate's legal team. Mr. Amupiton denied all of those allegations, saying that he had never been part of any presidential legal team. But let you hear him speak for himself, according to what happened on the floor of the Senate yesterday.
Lawmakers reconvened for plenary focused on one agenda, the screening of Professor Joash Amupiton, who was barely 1 week ago appointed by President Bola Tinubu and endorsed by the Council of State as chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission.
To conduct the confirmation hearing.
The Senate relaxed its rules to admit his immediate family members as well as officials from INEC. In his opening remarks, the 58-year-old professor of law, who is the first INEC chair from the North Central region, gave a brief overview of his background.
My formative years were nurtured in the environment, a nurturing environment of my early primary school at Baptist Primary School, Electoral. Three things have always influenced my life. Number one, God. Number two, hard work. And number three, mentorship.
Immediately after, an extensive screening session began.
I want to ask, with your wealth of experience, can you share with us what accountability mechanisms that you will expand or introduce into our electoral process?
That came up in the last election was the issue of beavers and IREF platform, which were game changers. Given your understanding of the terrain, how do you intend to ensure these technologies function optimally?
IREF was supposed to provide some guarantees and checks and balances. But owing to the issues of glitches, which in simple time, I understand as improper configuration, I have to audit the system, if I'm given the opportunity, to see what is actually wrong and whether we have what it takes as it is now. Because it is not just the INEC responsibility alone. You have the other agencies like NCC, NIMC, and the service providers.
Promising to rebuild trust and safeguard the integrity and independence of the electoral process, he asserts that the deployment of technology, including drones, will be prioritized as a central strategy.
We can also invest more on logistics to ensure that every part of Nigeria we can penetrate. Even if we have to use drones.
On tackling electoral malpractice, especially among returning officers, the professor proposed the creation of an internal oversight system.
With the National Assembly, because there will be need for some legislative intervention in some cases. There is a need for an Electoral Offences Commission that will be able to investigate. INEC does not really have the capacity presently. We can introduce a whistleblowing policy too that will enable people to detect and expose such practices.
He also addressed the protracted issue of conducting local government elections.
One of the concerns is that is it not going to add another burden on INEC? So we will look at it, and it's not something that I may be able to provide an answer for.
Again, he addresses the question of whether or not he was part of the President Tinubu's legal team in the 2023 elections.
I did not appear in the Presidential Election Tribunal and at the Supreme Court.
So you never represented Peter Obi or PDP?
I was not part of it.
Okay,
I was not part of it.
After over 2 hours of screening, one lawmaker raised a motion which threw the chamber into a rowdy session.
The nominee have done justice to almost all the questions asked him in these hallowed chambers. With the permission of Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, if the nominee could be allowed to answer these questions and then take a bow and take the leave of the Senate.
So you have to rule this motion. To ask questions. You get the direction, Mr. President. You get the direction, Mr. President. You should ask questions.
Yes.
Let's do 2 minutes.
The motion is then put into a voice vote.
Now, those in support that he be allowed to answer the few questions that are still pending, and thereafter take a bow and go. Say aye. Those against that he be allowed to answer the few questions already asked and take a bow and go. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Professor Amukweto, a senior advocate of Nigeria who succeeds Professor Mahmood Yakubu, subsequently takes a bow and leaves. Without further delay, the Senate confirms his appointment as the 6th substantive chairman of INEC.
And there you have it, the confirmation of the 6th INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amupiton. That was how it went down yesterday on the floor of the Senate. He's not been sworn in, but I would think that would not take any time. Very soon we should see him somewhere within the council chambers taking his oath of office. Or maybe it will be done maybe just to show the independence of INEC. It might be done within the INEC offices. It's unclear, but we do know that he has to be sworn in before he begins his duties. Well, we do know that a number of other civil society organizations have been keeping tabs on developments in the Senate, and not just in the Senate, but also within the presidency. Don't forget that there's been a loud outcry since the last Council of State meeting held, where 176 people were pardoned. That list has created controversy, which has continued to see quite a number of reactions, not just from the civil society, from lawyers, from well-meaning Nigerians. But yesterday, we also got a response from the Attorney General's office, who released a statement saying the presidential prerogative of mercy exercise is at review stage and is not final. Well, we'll be getting reactions to that from somebody who has also written. He's reacted to that particular, or his organization has reacted to the presidential pardon list. Mr. Al Musa Rafsajani joins us now. He's the Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, and he's also the head of Transparency International in Nigeria. Thank you so much for speaking with us all the way from New York, Mr. Rafsajani. It's a good thing that you can join us this morning.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure that you've been watching with very keen interest developments in Nigeria, especially with the screening of the new INEC chairman. What was your own perception of him on the floor yesterday, given all that he said?
Thank you very much. Although what civil society have been advocating based on the ways report, which is aimed to help to reform and strengthen electoral process in Nigeria and to restore more confidence and ensure the fact that INEC truly is independent, has not been, accepted by President Bola Tinubu, which is to allow Judicial Council to put some nomination of credible, competent, qualified Nigerians. But since the president has decided, to nominate fraud, there's nothing you can do now, because already the Council of State, the National Assembly have already, confirmed him. My impression was, he came with the actually determination, with the innocent zeal and commitment. And he is determined to do the work if he is given the opportunity. He's very confident, about what he was saying and what he wants to do. We can only, support, him to ensure that the electoral body is strengthened and is able to, carry the mandate given to him. So this is the only, thing that we can do at this point, in time, because already he has been confirmed, and there's need, for all Nigerians to provide the necessary support for him to succeed, because we need to ensure that we restore confidence in our electoral process in Nigeria. We need to ensure that Nigerians believe in our institutions. We need to ensure that, all the previous problems relating to the electoral process in this country are addressed. But, I am, mindful of the fact that there are some forces that will not necessarily want him to succeed. They will be interfering. They will want to see how they can control. They will want to continue to see how they can sabotage the electoral process, and all the thing that he intends to do. So we as civil society, we will do everything possible to provide the necessary support to ensure that the electoral process is actually more transparent, more accountable and responsive, and the citizens continue to believe in our country, in our system, because when the citizen completely, are losing confidence, or hope in the capacity or the ability or the neutrality of our public institutions and public officials, that's a big challenge. So we need to ensure that we restore that, trust, that, confidence between the government institutions and Nigerian people. And Nigerian people, are right for them to be suspicious on some of these issues, because many a times public officials in Nigeria appears to adopt the concept of deception, lies, and there is no even shame. Every now and then people will say they will do X, Y, Z. Government will come up to say they will do this, and then they do the opposite side of it. And then the citizen continue to express, a kind of mistrust. So we are hoping that the new INEC chair, is going to build on some of the successes of his, predecessors, because there's also going to be a huge challenge for him if, he drew some of the positive, reforms introduced by the previous INEC leaderships.
Well, it appears that he doesn't intend to do that, because one of the things that the Mahmoud Yakubu-led INEC was commended for was the introduction of technology, the focus on introduction of technology, even though at the end of the day, the technology seemed to have failed or not to have under-delivered, so to speak. But he did say that he intends to continue with the deployment of technology, even including drones. He made quite a number of promises. He wants to audit the system to find out what exactly happened with IREV and BVAS. He says, I will have to audit it if I'm allowed to, or if I'm perhaps given the job. But maybe that was subject to his confirmation. So quite a number of things that he's promised in that regard. But I'm wondering, since we can expect that he will be sworn in before the Anambra elections, how much of this do you think he will be able to bear on the Anambra polls, or do you think that that is already done and dusted and there's very little that can be done in that regard?
So, with regard to the continuation of technology and to apply properly for the Anambra election, it will be extremely difficult for him to succeed, except there's a cooperation from the National Assembly and from the executive, because we need to legislate, we need to ensure that use of technology, compulsory use of technology is mainstream in the electoral law. Otherwise, you will end up with what the Supreme Court has given us now, virtually making the technology, the innovation that have introduced as like an option. So, but we want to make it to be really part of the electoral process, that anybody that comes will have to make use of it. So now that he comes, I think it should be part of the prioritization of his agenda to ensure that the National Assembly help to work to ensure that they make the use of technology mandatory in our electoral process. So I will commend him if he is able to pursue that, get all the necessary stakeholders, the political parties, the National Assembly members, the executive, and even the civil society, as well as the support of Nigerian people, because he needs the public support to succeed. If Nigerians suspect that he is not going to do that, then they will begin not to participate in the manner that they should. Because if you look at the pattern of the voter turnout, is decreasing, and if you can stick and ensure that the use of technology is done, I believe many Nigerians will participate in the process, and it will be more transparent, more accountable, and many Nigerians will believe in the system. Right now, the suspicion is that people believe that once you have loose money or you have dirty money, you can plumb into the system. First and foremost, you have political parties that are not really, real political parties in the sense, in terms of their, party primary election. People with the dirty money, they usually take over the same people who have power, like ministers, governors, presidents. They determine and dictate who becomes, the candidate or the party aspirant, So this is also something that we need to change if we want to restore that confidence on Nigerians, because we need to reform the political party system in Nigeria. There's no internal democracy because there's no ownership in the political parties in Nigeria. People don't even pay their membership due, so it is only governors, president, and other people with the dirty money that decide and dictate who becomes even councillor, even local government chairman, governor, Senate, House of Rep. It is a clique of some people. So platform of political parties now, it is just simply used to, bring in whatever they want. No internal democracy, no contestation.
Well, Mr. Osajani, the truth of the matter is we can actually have a whole seminar on internal democracy within political parties, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to say. If we dedicate a whole day, there will be a lot to say about our political party system in Nigeria. But I'm still trying to focus on INEC, which has a responsibility to regulate these political parties. It's unclear how much influence it will be able to wield on making sure that political parties are as democratic as they ought to be. But then he also talked about what the commission itself needs to do internally to hold people accountable. One of the things we've seen in recent times is that people, commit offenses on election day, do things that they ought not to do. They are well documented, their names are known, the things that they did wrong are very well known, yet there's very little that can be done about them. We see people trying to, bribe INEC officials. We've seen people buying votes on election. These people's faces are seen But, you know, security agencies will tell you we can only arrest if we're told by INEC to arrest. And INEC says, look, we cannot add that to what it is that we're doing. It's going to be too much. So he has made a case for the Electoral Offences Commission. How far do you think that they're going to be able to go pushing for that? The fact that there needs to be accountability and consequences for bad behavior.
So, luckily, this is part of Waste Report's, proposal, and this is also part of the civil society organizations that we have been pushing for, this, reforms in the electoral process. Because usually, when you have these, offenses, the state attorney general has to, prosecute that kind of person, has to cooperate. But in most cases, it is the ruling party. If the ruling party members were the one that perpetrated that offenses, it is difficult for the state attorney general or even for the federal government, security, guys to do anything. So there must be a total mind change in the way and manner in which some people are carrying these offenses with impunity, simply because they belong to, either at the state or at the federal level, they belong to ruling party. And when you belong to the ruling party, you appear to be untouchable. I think there's need to change that. If the security agencies, can look at issues, beyond just being loyal to the president or to the governor or to whoever party member that is powerful, if they just pace their professional work, they pace the nation, I think we will be able to minimize instances of this thing. And if also there's a deterrent, because part of the challenge is that there is no deterrent. People just do this and they get away with it. So if the INEC chair this time around can work with relevant, agencies, because the truth is that he alone or INEC alone cannot be able to successfully deal with this issue. So there's need to collaborate. There's need to work together with relevant, government agencies to also ensure that the political parties, they caution their members. Civil society have been deploying resources to educate, sensitize Nigerians to ensure that they carry out non-violence participation in the electoral process. But of course, civil society is overwhelmed. They don't have, that much resources everywhere in the country. They don't have that human resources and financial resources. So therefore, the responsibility is actually on the government to ensure that people, behave responsibly. Political parties, they must also preach to their members to behave responsibly. Otherwise, you will continue to sabotage and undermine this aspiration that the new INEC chair want to put in place.
Let me quickly chip this in, this issue of whistleblowing, which he says that is one of the things that he hopes they can roll out so that Nigerians are more involved in the process and can out officials within the commission who, would want to do anything untoward. You have overseen, I will not say you've overseen, but you've seen how a policy of government in that regard, the whistleblowing policy, and you're very concerned about issues of corruption and transparency, at least here in Nigeria. How effective do you think that this sort of policy, should it be introduced in INEC, will be? Or what, shall I say, what needs to happen to make such a policy effective if it is deployed by INEC?
Thank you very much. The challenge that we have is that INEC, as it is now, the staff of INEC, the official of INEC, many of them are also party interests. Some of them, they are agents of some political parties. Believe me, some of the INEC, staff. So they directly and indirectly help to undermine even the effectiveness of INEC itself. You also have already card-carrying party members as commissioners in INEC, which also, again, creates concern. With all this that is happening, it will take the courage of the new INEC chair to ensure that at least he decisively deal with the saboteurs within the INEC, saboteurs of electoral transparency, saboteurs of ensuring that even the logistic is actually addressed, the logistic challenge that we keep on experiencing in this country challenge. So I am saying that reforming the internal mechanism in INEC is number one priority that he has to, give attention to if he wants to succeed. All those people that are alleged to be agents, of some people outside the INEC work, he need to actually reassign them, or he need to even get rid of them. That's number one. Number two, you also need to work with the necessary stakeholders to ensure that this idea of the whistleblowing succeed. Because civil society and international observers, all the elections that have taken place from 1999 to date, they have been documenting and providing some of these instances, but nobody bothered to work with them to ensure that they correct those issues. But if the new INEC chair want to prioritize this, I think we will commend him, and we will see that he succeed in that, because this is part of the reason why many Nigerians stop participating in the electoral process, because they lose confidence in the whole process. So to restore that confidence, you need to have certain system and practices that will guarantee Nigerians that it is not going to be business as usual. And if the whistle is blown, there should be action. We should not just have a system just for the sake of having the system. It must be operationalized. And when people violate those things, there must be consequences. Otherwise, it will not reduce the impunity in the electoral process. So I commend to focus on that.
Mr. President, let me take you up on this issue of the presidential pardon, the exercise of the prerogative of mercy, which has caused ripples in our country. CISLAC, the organization which you head, has written to decry the conviction, saying that it could significantly undermine, well, this is in respect of the pardon that was granted Mr. James Ibori, which you say is beyond the constitutional powers of the Nigerian president. You say it could also significantly undermine international legal cooperation, particularly in the areas of anti-corruption and narcotics control, where Nigeria relies heavily on foreign intelligence. Well, your organization is not the only one that has responded. Mr. Femi Falana, SAN, has also responded, saying that the president should withdraw the withdraw the list and review it. And just this morning, yesterday this was released. This morning it's out in the public now. That the presidential prerogative of mercy exercise is at review stage. It says none of the people who have been given clemency has been released from custody. This is the response of the Attorney General of the Federation. He says it is important to note that the last stage of the exercise, after approval by the Council of State, is the issuance of the instrument for the implementation of the decision concerning each beneficiary. This stage affords an opportunity for a final look at the list for remedial purposes, if any, before the instrument is forwarded to the Controller General of Corrections for necessary action. He underlines that this verification process is part of the standard protocol and reflects the government's commitment to transparency and due diligence. I think that the Attorney General also thanked Nigerians for their vigilance and constructive feedback. Do you find this comforting? Do you think that there is hope that perhaps indeed all of the concerns that have been brought up as a result of this list released, do you think that there could be an actual review that will answer the many concerns raised by Nigerians on the cadre of people pardoned by the president?
Yeah, well, so even though we know the Constitution gives the president the power to exercise such kind of exercise. But definitely, in this case, there was no proper consultation, there was no proper reflection on the consequences of such kind of action on certain category of people that the government has offered those kind of pardon. First, some of the people listed, they are very dangerous to the nation, and that will create serious reputational problem or additional reputational problem for our country. And then again, the government did not also know that you cannot even do pardon on a case that you have no any jurisdiction over. The case of James Ibori was tried in a different country, and Nigeria did not participate in that process. So you cannot pardon what another country has done. There's limit at which you can do that. Secondly, some of the people, they are saboteurs of the nation resources, revenue. Some of them, they are killers. Some of them are drug, people that have been destroying young people in Nigeria as a result of their activity. So there's no any way, if government has reflected and consulted, that will have granted, pardon to such kind of, serious offenders. I think what the president, in my opinion, could have done was to say that, not to pardon them, to say you have erased the entire crimes that they have done. If someone is serving maybe 10-year jail, you could probably reduce it to, even if it is 1 year, you can have that power, but not to say that that person is no longer, being seen as someone that has committed any offense, in this country. Because the person, if you call him or her ex-convict, can sue you to court. And shamelessly, some of them are already coming to begin to do political thing, despite the looting that they have done. Because they have no shame, they think Nigerians are foolish. So they are already coming to say that they are going to be doing some political activity. They should be completely banned from holding public office, because they have betrayed and they have actually abused the law of the land. So that's why we advise the government, and I want to thank the Attorney General for listening to the cry of Nigerians, including CISLAC, to say that, okay, we are going to review the list, because it has a serious implication internationally. Nigeria is relying on international intelligence from our international partners for cooperation, even on assets recovery, on dealing with drugs and narcotics. And then now suddenly you say these people who are high profile criminal, as it were, you now say that they have no case, they don't have any problem. Whatever political support that the government was looking from this individual, I think the country is more superior than the personal political interest that they would probably provide to the whoever that pushed for this thing. And many Nigerians were even alleging that because all of the lists, most of them, they are actually big men and women who have big money in this country. Many Nigerians are even alluding or alleging that they probably did the usual thing that some people do in this country. So therefore, I think if we are to look at this in with all sort of seriousness, we should first and foremost look at those Nigerians who have committed small offenses and they have been languishing in correctional center for 10 to 20 years on awaiting trial. Because those ones, you are actually making them to be hardened criminals, by putting them with even bigger crooks and criminals in the correctional center. I think President should prioritize those people who have already spent substantial number of years awaiting trial, and they have not committed, murder. They have not committed a serious offense. Some of them, they were, taken because they criticized state governors, policies or government policies. They just bundled them because the country judicial system is such that, the poor people are always the one that, will be victimized. We need to see how we can advise to review this kind of powers that the president has to ensure that there should be consultation and looking at cases based on merit without jeopardizing the country, reputation. Because I tell you, if you do not review this list, the international community will further isolate us. they will further continue to see us as a country supporting crooks and criminals. This is not what the government of Tinubu should be happy with. That is why we are happy that the government agrees with the civil society that they will review the list and ensure that it is not pardon, they should pardon to some category of people. It should be maybe perhaps, it should be clemency, because there's a difference between pardoning and clemency.
All right, Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Rafsanjani, some people will say that perhaps that's why the list, talking about checks to the president's powers, perhaps that's why it has to go to the Council of State. But we hope to get further clarity since the Attorney General says that the list is now going to be under review. I think at the end of the day, Nigerians will be owed a final list of those who were actually approved and those who perhaps did not scale through even after it went through to the Council of State. But we have to thank you for your advocacy and for your thoughts on the confirmation of the new INEC chairman. Thank you for sharing them with us. Mr. Alma Musa Rafsanjani is the Executive Director of CISLAC and is also the head of Transparency International and joined us from New York. Thank you once more.
From Washington, D.C. From
Washington, D.C. Thank you so much.
I'm currently attending IMF World Bank annual meeting.
All right.
We are also economic issue for Nigeria and Africa.
All right. Thank you so much. And we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Well, we take a break at this time. When we come back, a new matter has come up. Yes, somebody asked for transparency. They wanted they actually demanded some information from INEC. They wanted the voter register in line with the Freedom of Information Act. INEC did respond, saying that we will give you, but it will cost you over 1.5 billion naira to print the documents. And it is raising questions about the effectiveness of the Freedom of Information Act. We'll be delving into that when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. On the 8th of October this year, a certain VC Otapopo and Associates had written an application letter to INEC asking for the certified true copy of Register of Voters and all existing polling units in Nigeria under the Freedom of Information Act. Now, on the 13th of October, a few days after that application was received by INEC, they responded writing to acknowledge that letter and then saying that they had approved that request and that the applicant was to pay the sum of 1,505,901,715 naira only. So if we were to summarize that according to the little maths that I did in school, it will be just a little above 1.5 billion naira. INEC asked the applicant to pay into the INEC remitter retrieval reference and present the proof of payment in order to proceed with the request. Well, as expected, this has been greeted with some controversy, and INEC has had to, clarify why it cost that much. So INEC released another statement saying that they needed to clarify why exactly it cost that much. So INEC says that the cost is deemed strictly in line with the provisions of Section 8, subsection 1 of the Freedom of Information Act 2011, which states that where access to information is to be given under this act, the public institution may charge an amount representing the actual cost of document duplication and transcription in accordance with INEC guidelines for the processing and issuance of certified true copies of documents, which draws authority from Section 15 of the Electoral Act 2022. The applicable charge is 250 naira per page. For clarity, the National Register of Voters in all 36 states and the FCT contains 93,469,008 registered voters with 16 voters per page, requiring over 6 million pages. Additionally, the printing the existing polling units in the electoral wards across the country, covering 176,848 polling units, will require 4,946 pages. The total number of pages to be printed for both requests is therefore 6,000,000 plus, you know, at a unit cost of 250 naira per page, resulting in the sum of 1.5 billion 5,901,000. Beg your pardon, I'm not even reading this right. It's 5,901,750 naira. You know, when they tell you to take your, your writing out your numbers in letters, very important. This is where you need it in future, for those of you who are wondering. Well, this is how much it costs. It's going to cost Mr. Chakbuko, who has applied for this. And people are saying, but it's supposed to be Freedom of Information Act. This statement was signed by Mrs. Victoria Etamesi, who is the Director of Voter Education and Publicity of INEC. And it has raised quite a number of questions on, you know, the issue of the Freedom of Information Act. But we have someone to discuss this particular issue with us this morning. In our studios is Dr. Chike Walter-Duru. Thank you so much for coming on the program. He is the Associate Professor of Mass Communication and Executive Director of the Media Initiative Against Injustice, Violence and Corruption, and also the Chair of the Board of the Freedom of Information Coalition in Nigeria. Has this hit you as a surprise? I mean, how did you receive this particular controversy when you saw it brewing in the social media space?
All right, good morning and thanks for having me. It's unfortunate that a new INEC chairman is coming, and he's received with this kind of controversy and an obvious case of denial of access to information. I said it's an obvious case because what they're asking for, about 1.5 billion, amounts to denial. If you look at the section that's been cited in the response, in the latest response
of INEC,
yes, section 8, talks about fees. It says fees shall be limited to standard charges for document duplication and transcription where necessary. Fees shall be limited. The standard fee, standard charge. Mm-hmm. What is it that constitutes a standard charge? Standard cost, rather. If you go to the roadside to photocopy a document, for instance, and that document costs 10 naira a copy, it means that is the standard cost of duplication. If you look at the Attorney General's guidelines on FOI implementation in Nigeria, Attorney General's guideline made it very simple, and it says 10 naira per copy for duplication. And now the Commission also cited the Electoral Act and, of course, the cost of issuing certified true copies. And I'll take you to Section 1 of the FOI Act, and I'll read. It's very clear. Notwithstanding anything contained in any other act, law, or regulation, the right of any person to access or request information, whether or not contained in any written form, which is in the custody or possession of any public institution or official, agency, and so on, howsoever described, is established. Now we are talking of access to information. It means it is guided by this act. Mm-hmm. It is about an established fact. It is not about personal opinion. It goes beyond guidelines. The act is very clear. And it says, whatever you hope to charge, if you must charge, if you are not patriotic enough to say, come on, this should be issued, this should be released to Nigerians. If you insist that anyone will have to pay to access information as provided for in Section 8 of the Act, it has to be limited, as also clearly defined and established by the Act. It is limited to the standard cost of duplication or reproduction.
Okay, just a moment. So what we also see that in the request which this person has made is that they're asking for certified true copy. Not just a copy, but we usually know that certified true copies are usually stamped and they're signed. So hasn't that already put the... Because some people have said, why can't you just have a soft copy? And, you know, we know that usually certified true copies are never given in soft copies, or rarely, if they are given in soft copies. They're usually printed out and handed over in hard copy. So do you think that even the nature of the request has already given INEC some handicap?
No, there's no handicap. Not at all. It is a deliberate decision to violate a citizen's right of access to information.
That's how you interpret it?
No, it's clear. Let me explain why I said that. If the Act has established the right of citizens to access government-held information, by the way, if you look at Section 2 of the FOI Act, the issue of the voter register is actually one of the things that should be proactively disclosed. It should be in public space. Nigerians shouldn't even need to invoke the Act to ask for.
But usually it is. I mean, from time to time, INEC prints it out and says, go and confirm that your name is there. Make sure that they put it in polling units, especially when it's close to elections. Right now, there's an ongoing CVR, or I don't know if the process has ended, an ongoing continuous voter registration. So people have been encouraged, come and register. And I do not know, but some people say perhaps you can even check it out online. Should we ask what exactly this applicant would have needed such information for? Because it wasn't just asking for the entire voter register. He was also asking, or they were also asking for all the existing polling units in Nigeria.
Absolutely. It is the right of every Nigerian to access or ask for any information he or she wishes or wants. The Act is very clear that an applicant needs not establish any interest. What that means is that you don't need to explain to anyone what you hope to do with this information, and no one has the right under this Act to ask you why you are asking for this information. If it falls under the exemption list, say 11 to 19, excluding 13 of the Act, that says, okay, these are exempted materials, then that's a different issue. Even if they are exempted, one may, even if it's in the public interest, in the interest of the public, one may still ask for it. But in this instance, the person needs not establish any interest in information.
So what do you think should happen now? Because INEC says, we have not deprived you. You have made this request. We've approved it. We're saying this is how much it will cost to produce. If you have the money, pay it into this account, show us proof of payment, and we will go ahead with production. C'est fini.
The challenge is that INEC is determining a FOI request compliance based on a different law. The Act is very clear on the standard cost of reproduction and duplication. Therefore, using 250 naira as its benchmark per copy, citing the Electoral Act, amounts to violation, because it's not. The Commission is trying to introduce a conflict that does not exist, that never existed and will never exist between the Act and any other established piece of legislation. And it's on this premise that I took you to Section 1, that has established the superiority of this Act over any other existing law, legislation.
So you are saying that 10 naira per copy is what should be charged?
That is not my opinion.
Yeah, I'm saying that according to the FOI.
If you look at Section 29...
Does it say the same thing for certified true copies?
No, Section 29 of the Act empowers or has given the Attorney General's office oversight on FOI implementation. And pursuant to that responsibility, the Attorney General's office has produced 2 different regulations for FOI implementation. And the essence of this regulation is to put clarity to some of these things with a view to ensuring that everyone is on the same page, the demand sector, the demand side, and of course the supply side are on the same page regarding the expectations of the law.
Yeah, but even
now, at this point...
Even, just a moment, even at 10 naira per page, if they require over 6 million pages, that will still amount, it might be significantly less than 1.5 billion, but you're still looking at roughly 60 million naira.
No, the point now is that if I were in the shoes of the requester of information, I would have asked for electronic copies. If such a document could be sent to me via email or even through a flash or a drive, any drive, that wouldn't cost more than 10,000 naira, so I pick out the information I need and I'll go back, sort them out and use them for whatever I hope to use. So in the wisdom of the requester, he chose to ask for hard copies. So that's the challenge here. But for me, if I were in a position to advise the requester or any other Nigerian, when you are asking for documents or information that are this voluminous, you could ask for electronic copies.
Does the FOI foresee such a situation?
Absolutely.
Where you have electronic copies?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As an individual, I have invoked the FOI Act a couple of times. You know, and I asked that the information I requested be sent to my email, and I got a response.
So you would advise the person to ask for
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, let us see if the applicant, Visi or Chakpupu and Associates, will take that advice. Even if they're going to ask for hard copies according to the cost as prescribed by the FOI, it will still be a huge sum of over 60 million naira. You are saying it should cost 10 naira according to what the FOI says.
According to the Attorney General's guideline.
Okay.
The Attorney General's guideline on FOI implementation in Nigeria.
Okay.
But the Act is very clear. The Act says standard cost of reproduction.
Okay. So maybe when we see INEC, we'll ask them why they have chosen that, not the standard cost of reproduction. But we have to thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Dr. Chike Walter Duru is an associate professor of mass communication and the executive director of the Media Initiative Against Injustice, Violence and Corruption, and also the chair of the board of the Freedom of Information Coalition in Nigeria. Thank you for speaking with us on Sunrise.
Thank you very much once again for having me.
Well, you can share your thoughts with us. Let us know what you think via Twitter handles and also via email as well. Thank you so much for being a part of today's program. I wish you a very splendid weekend. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf. On top of the hour is Business Morning.